The morning her father died, Lena stood in front of the bathroom mirror, brushing her teeth with the same numbness that had followed her since the night before. The air felt hollow, not just from grief, but from something else, something deeper, something unspoken. Her brother Mason hadn't even looked at her when the lawyer read the will. Everything went to him. Not half, not shared. Everything. The house, the land. The investment accounts their father built over 3 decades of sweat, savings, and sacrifice. Lena, who had moved back home to care for their father in the last 2 years of his illness, got a thank you clause and an envelope with $1,000. The same amount their dad used to give them for Christmas when they were kids. A gesture, a memory, a slap. Mason didn't seem shocked, just smug. She had heard him whispering on the phone a few weeks earlier. She'd caught the tail end of the conversation in the kitchen when she came down the stairs too softly. She won't fight it. Lena doesn't have it in her. Trust me. He was right about one thing. Lena hadn't fought anything, yet. Back in her old room, surrounded by posters of bands she no longer listened to and books she couldn't part with, Lena picked up a photo frame of her and their dad at the county fair. She was 12, clutching a stuffed frog he won her at the ring toss. Behind the frame, the wallpaper was peeling. That's when she noticed the edge of something hidden, a tiny rip in the backing of the frame. Paper? Her heart skipped. Lena pried the back loose, fingers trembling. A yellowed envelope fell onto her lap. No name, no stamp. Just a clean fold and the unmistakable handwriting she knew better than her own. Her father's. Lena, if you're reading this, then I didn't get to fix it in time. The letter went on for 5 pages. Handwritten, deep, apologetic. It revealed everything. Mason had manipulated him during his final decline, brought lawyers to the house, lied. Told their father that Lena had already been compensated, that she had signed away her share, that she wanted nothing more than to move on with her life. I believed him, and I was tired, but I should have known better. You were here. You never left me. You held my hand every single night. Lena's fingers shook as she read the next part. Behind the mirror in the attic bathroom, taped to the back, the real will. I never filed it. I was afraid of more fights. But if Mason lied, then you need to see it for yourself. I'm sorry, sweetheart. I'm so sorry. Lena's breath caught. She flew up the stairs. The attic smelled like mothballs and neglect. Dust hovered in the morning light, and the air felt thicker with each step. She found the small bathroom tucked in the corner, still with the rust-ringed sink and warped floorboards. The mirror was held by 2 screws. She unscrewed it with a butter knife. There, taped with yellowing duct tape, was a folded document in a plastic bag. The real will. This one split everything, 50-50. Even the vineyard in Sonoma that Mason now claimed as his entrepreneurial rebirth. Lena stared at the paper, pulse racing, as a strange new emotion bubbled beneath her chest. Not sadness, not even rage. It was clarity. Downstairs, Mason was on the phone in the living room, pacing like he owned the place. His voice echoed off the hardwood. I'll put it on the market by next week. The house should fetch at least... He turned and saw her standing in the doorway, mirror dust on her jeans, and something fierce behind her eyes. She smiled, not sweetly. She held up the will. You were wrong, Mason. I do have it in me. His expression drained of color. Mason didn't speak right away. His jaw twitched, his lips parted, but no words came. Lena watched him, holding the folded will in her hand like a blade, not shouting, not crying, just waiting. I don't know what that is, he finally muttered, taking a step closer. His tone was tight, controlled, the way it always was when he was lying. Where'd you get that? Lena didn't answer. She just tilted her head slightly, like she was watching a stranger explain themselves in a language she no longer cared to understand. Then, with calm precision, she walked past him and placed the will on the coffee table. She sat down, crossed her legs. I found it where Dad told me to, she said evenly. Behind the attic mirror, in his handwriting. Dated and signed. Mason's eyes darted toward the paper like it might catch fire. "That's not legal," he said, voice rising. He had dementia by then. It wouldn't hold in court. "He wrote it before the diagnosis. You know that. You were still living in Phoenix when he did." Lena leaned forward slightly. "Want to test it in court?" Silence. She let the question sit between them like a loaded gun. Later that afternoon, Lena drove to the law office of Mr. Hendricks, their father's longtime estate lawyer, the one Mason had fired just months before their dad's final decline. The receptionist, an older woman named Gail who remembered Lena fondly, squeezed her hand when she saw the envelope. "Your father adored you, honey," she whispered. "I'm glad you came." In the quiet of Mr. Hendricks' office, Lena handed over the hidden will. His glasses slid down his nose as he read the first page, then the second. His brows slowly rose. "This changes everything," he said softly. He pulled out the official file, the one Mason had submitted, the one their father had signed under duress, days after a hospital stay that left him dazed and confused. It had always felt off. Now there was proof. "You'll need a forensic handwriting analysis," Hendricks continued, tapping the documents, "and a motion to challenge the existing probate. But this is very solid, Lena." She nodded slowly, chest tight, but steadier than she had felt in weeks. "What happens to Mason if the court agrees with me?" Hendricks looked at her over the rim of his glasses. "Well," he said, "if he knowingly manipulated your father's legal decisions while he was in a vulnerable state, then we're not just talking about probate court anymore." That night, Lena sat on the porch swing, the will tucked in a manila envelope beside her, and her father's letter folded in her lap. The house was silent except for the distant sound of frogs and the hum of crickets. She didn't cry, not out of numbness, but because for once she didn't feel small. A breeze rustled the oak tree out front. Her dad had planted it when she was born, told her once, "You and that tree grew up together. You're both stronger than you look." She closed her eyes, holding the letter to her chest. Then her phone buzzed, a message from Mason. "We need to talk. You're making a mistake." She stared at it for a long moment before typing back, "Number, you made the mistake. I'm just correcting it." What Mason didn't know was that Lena had already spoken to someone else too. Her father's old accountant, the one Mason had also fired, and tomorrow she'd be meeting him at the storage unit her father kept under Lena's name, the one Mason didn't even know existed. Her father had always said, "Keep a backup of your backup." Something told Lena he had followed his own advice, and whatever was inside that unit, it might hold the final pieces of this twisted puzzle. She didn't sleep much that night, not out of fear, but readiness. Tomorrow, the real game would begin. The next morning, Lena left the house before the sun rose. The air was still, heavy with the scent of dew and the faint musk of the surrounding pine trees. She didn't tell anyone where she was going, not even Gail at the law office. Not yet. The storage facility sat on the outskirts of town, one of those off-the-highway lots surrounded by a chain-link fence, half gravel, half cracked asphalt. Lena had only been there once before, years ago. She was 19 and her dad had asked her to help carry some old boxes. Back then, she hadn't questioned why he rented a space under her name. Now it felt deliberate, intentional. The clerk barely looked up when she handed over her ID and signed the logbook. He handed her a chipped brass key without a word. Unit 47. B. Lena walked slowly down the row, heart ticking faster with each step. The padlock clicked free with an old resistance. Then the door rattled upward, and dust rose in a soft cloud. Inside it was dark and quiet, just metal shelves, an old filing cabinet, and a green plastic bin. She pulled the chain to turn on the overhead bulb, flickering to life with a weak hum. Then she saw it, the folder. Thick, sealed in a weathered manila jacket with Private and Berlina written across it in sharp black ink. Her breath caught in her throat. She opened it on top of the metal cabinet, careful not to rip the edges. Inside were photocopies of the first will, the real one, complete with notarized signatures from the local notary, dated 2 months before her father's memory began to slip. Bank statements, email printouts, recorded phone calls, transcribed line by line. One conversation stood out. Mason had called a lawyer in Phoenix a full month before the official will was changed, talking about securing the house and cutting the sister out. The language was cold, transactional. There was more. A second envelope taped to the back of the folder with a sticky note that read, "Use this if Mason tries to deny the vineyard." Inside was the deed, but the signature on it wasn't their father's. It was Mason's. Forged. Lena stared at it, stunned. This wasn't just betrayal. This was fraud. By noon, she was sitting across from Hendricks again. His eyes widened as he scanned the document, then narrowed. "This is big," he said, voice low. "He forged a deed to transfer ownership to himself?" Lena nodded. "And I have the real will, 2 witnesses, and now proof that the vineyard was taken illegally." Hendricks leaned back in his chair. "Mason's not just in trouble," he said. "He's in criminal territory now." Lena stood outside the law office afterward, clutching the folder to her chest as sunlight broke through the clouds. She didn't feel triumphant. She felt resolute. She had spent years wondering if her silence made her weak, if being the one who kept the peace meant she was invisible. Not anymore. Her phone buzzed again. "Mason, what did you find?" She didn't answer. She opened her notes app and typed 2 words, "family meeting." That evening, she drove to their mother's old house, the one their father had left to Mason because he said Lena didn't want it. She hadn't. It was too full of memories. But tonight, she didn't come for the memories. She came to take back the truth. Mason opened the door with a wary look. There were people inside, family friends, their cousin Deb, and Uncle Troy. Mason had invited them over, hoping to get ahead of the storm. He didn't know she was bringing the thunder. Lena stepped into the doorway and held up the folder. "Everyone needs to sit down." Mason's smirk faltered. "What is this?" Troy asked, confused. "You 2 fighting over furniture now?" Lena looked directly at Mason. "Number, we're talking about fraud, lies, and the will Dad actually left behind." The room fell silent. "I have the proof, every piece, the original will, the forged deed, the call transcripts. I'm not here to ask. I'm here to tell." She turned to the rest of the family. "Dad didn't want this to be ugly. He trusted the wrong person. But I won't let him be silenced, too." Mason's voice finally broke through, sharp and angry. "You think anyone here is going to believe you? You disappeared for years, Lena. You only showed up when he got sick." "No," she said quietly. "I showed up when he needed me. You showed up when the money did." She let the silence land like a gavel. Then she placed the folder on the coffee table in front of everyone. "Read it, or don't. Either way, I've already contacted the court, and I've already filed." Mason stood frozen, hands clenched at his sides. And for the first time, Lena saw something new in his eyes. Fear. The living room was silent, thick with a tension that made the air feel heavier than it should. Everyone stared at the folder lying on the table like it was a bomb waiting to go off. Lena remained standing. She didn't want to sit. Her body thrummed with adrenaline, but her voice was still calm, too calm for how deep the truth cut. Uncle Troy, who had once told Lena she should be more like Mason, leaned forward, squinting at the first page. "Jesus," he muttered. "This is notarized. This is real?" Mason's jaw flexed. "It's a trick. She forged it." Lena turned to him, eyes sharp. "Don't. You're not the only one who can play this game. I have handwriting analysis already in process. I have the storage unit rental history. I even have the surveillance logs showing the last time Dad entered it, before your forged vineyard deed was even signed." Deb, their cousin, gasped. "You forged a deed?" Mason looked around the room like the walls were closing in. "You don't understand how complicated it was. Dad was sick. He didn't know what he was doing. He was going to let her waste everything. He was of sound mind when he wrote the original will," Lena cut in. 2 months before the first memory lapses. and he had 2 witnesses, people who are still alive, by the way. She glanced around the room. I reached out. They're both willing to testify. Deb sank into the couch. Troy looked like he'd swallowed nails. Mason's wife, Sandra, who had been silent until now, finally stood. "You told me everything was clean," she hissed at Mason, her voice sharp, trembling. "You told me it was fair." He didn't answer. She stared at him, eyes wide with disbelief. "You lied to me too?" Mason snapped. "You think this is my fault? She came back here and played nursemaid for a year, and now she thinks she owns everything?" "I don't think that," Lena said quietly. "But I do think Dad wanted fairness. And you tried to take that away." She took a breath. "Not just from me, from him." The next morning, Lena returned to the house she had grown up in, the one her father built piece by piece with his own hands. She sat at the old kitchen table where he used to do Sunday crosswords and drink orange juice straight from the carton. The storm had begun. The lawyer had officially filed a petition to invalidate the revised will and initiate an emergency stay on the property transfers. Lena knew this wasn't going to be quick, but it was in motion now. No turning back. As she scrolled through her emails, a new message popped up from Mr. Hendricks. Subject, URGENT, something you should see. Inside the email was a scanned letter, another one, this time from the notary who had handled the original will. Lena's heart skipped. In it, the notary wrote that she had kept her own signed copy of the original will in her archives, just in case something ever felt off. She had always found Mason's sudden revision suspicious, and when she heard Lena was challenging the probate, she went back through her records. She'd found it, date-stamped, signed, identical to the one Lena had pulled from behind the mirror. There was no more guessing now. Lena's hand tightened around her coffee mug. She wasn't just fighting for her share. She was fighting to restore the truth, to restore her father's dignity, his intentions, his voice. By noon, news of the dispute was spreading beyond the family. Mason had started damage control, calls to old family friends, vague accusations on social media, casting Lena as the greedy, estranged daughter trying to rewrite history. He even posted a photo of their father in a hospital bed, looking frail, with a caption that read, "He trusted me to protect everything. Now someone wants to tear it all down." The comments were mixed. Some offered support, others asked questions, but Lena didn't reply. Instead, she met with the local journalist who used to cover city council meetings, and who also happened to be her friend from high school. "Are you sure you want this public?" the reporter asked, recorder already running. "It's going to get messy." Lena nodded. "It's already messy. But maybe other people need to know they're not alone. That when someone tries to erase you, you can still speak up." That evening, her story ran in the local online paper. Daughter fights to uphold late father's true will after alleged forgery. It included scanned images, quotes from the notary, mentions of the storage unit discovery. The article ended with Lena's words. "He was a good man. He loved both his children. But love doesn't mean silence in the face of betrayal, and I won't let my father be rewritten by someone else's greed." The comment section exploded. People remembered her dad, how generous he was, how proud he had been of his daughter. Lena read them slowly, tears slipping down her cheeks, not from pain this time, but from something that felt like justice beginning to stir. Back in Mason's house, rage brewed like a storm. He paced in his office, screen glowing with the article, fists clenched. His phone wouldn't stop ringing. Old contacts wanted to talk. His business partner pulled out of their Vineyard deal and said Sandra had taken the kids and gone to her mother's for the weekend. The cracks were spreading. He didn't know it yet, but another surprise was coming. Because tucked in the storage unit, beneath a false drawer in the cabinet Lena hadn't opened yet, was a flash drive, and what it contained would destroy whatever credibility Mason had left. The cabinet drawer stuck at first. Lena had returned to the storage unit a day after the article went live, urged by a quiet instinct that something had been overlooked. She pulled at the metal handle again, harder this time, until the drawer gave way with a scraping groan. And there it was, hidden under a false panel, taped in place with gray electrical tape. A flash drive, small, black, unmarked. She stared at it for a moment before pulling it free, heart thudding in her chest. It felt warm from being trapped beneath layers of dust and time, like it still held her father's breath. Back in her car, she opened her laptop and slipped the drive into the USB port. It loaded quickly. One folder, labeled Truth. Inside were 5 files, 4 video recordings, 1 audio file. She clicked the first video. It was dated 11 days before the will was altered. Her father sat in his recliner, pale but sharp-eyed, his voice weak but clear. I'm recording this because I've started to notice things. Conversations I don't remember having. Decisions I apparently made that I don't recall. And my son, Mason, God forgive me, he's been pushing me toward changing things I'm not comfortable with. I told him no, but he brought papers anyway. Lena's hand flew to her mouth. He looked straight into the camera. If anything happens, if this gets changed against my will, please, Lena, fight it. You were always the one who listened, the one who stayed. Don't let him rewrite what I've done. I want everything shared, equally. That's what I said. That's what I meant. The second video was even more damning. Mason's voice, off-screen, agitated. Just sign the damn thing, Dad. You're tired. Let me take care of it. She's not even asking for anything. She doesn't care. Then their father's voice, confused, scared. This isn't what we discussed. Where's Lena? Why isn't she here? She doesn't want to deal with this stuff. She said it's fine. She didn't say that. I never... The video ended. Lena sat still, frozen in place. The third clip showed a brief moment of Mason in the house office, scanning what looked like a document. The fourth was of him shredding papers into a bin late at night, unaware of a tiny camera blinking red behind a stack of old books. The final file was an audio recording, a voicemail, time-stamped. Hey, Dad, it's Lena. I just wanted to say goodnight. I know you're tired, but I'm downstairs if you need anything, okay? I made soup. It's your favorite. I'll leave some by the bed in case you wake up hungry. Love you. The recording cut off. Lena shut the laptop, her face buried in her hands. For a full minute, she couldn't breathe. By morning, the flash drive had been copied, documented, and securely delivered to Hendricks. He didn't even try to hide the disbelief on his face. This is going to bury him, he said slowly. This is more than just civil court. This is premeditated manipulation. This is coercion. This might even be elder abuse. Lena didn't flinch. I know. He looked at her with a new kind of respect. Not the sympathetic kind. Not pity, but recognition. You ready for this next part? He asked. I've been ready for a long time. The court hearing was set, just a preliminary motion, but it would be public. The courthouse buzzed with whispers when Lena walked in. She wore her father's watch, the one he stopped wearing when he got sick. It was too big for her wrist, but it felt like armor. Mason showed up 10 minutes late, eyes sunken, jaw clenched, suit too crisp like he was trying to cosplay integrity. Sandra wasn't with him. He didn't look at Lena. But she looked right at him, not with rage, not with vengeance, with truth. When Hendricks handed the judge the flash drive and the motion to unseal the full probate case, a murmur rippled across the room. Lena watched the judge's brow rise as he read the motion summary. Then he spoke. This court finds reasonable cause to proceed with a full evidentiary hearing. All assets will be frozen pending resolution, and the flash drive will be entered into the record as potential evidence of misconduct and forgery. Mason's face went pale. Lena stood quietly. Her heart didn't race. She wasn't afraid anymore. Outside the courthouse, a local news reporter caught her on the steps. Lena, do you have anything to say to the community or to your brother after today's hearing? Lena paused. Then she looked directly into the camera. I was erased quietly, so now I'm making noise. The day of the final court hearing was overcast. An almost poetic calm hung in the air, thick with unspoken tension and unyielding truth. Lena arrived alone. No entourage, no lawyer entourage. Just her, a simple navy dress, her father's watch snug on her wrist this time, resized. It ticked steadily, like a heartbeat that had waited far too long to be heard. Inside the courtroom, the seats were filled. Family, former friends, neighbors, a few people from town she hadn't seen in years. Even Mrs. Halperin, her high school English teacher, sat silently in the back, arms crossed like she'd come to watch justice pass through a red pen. At the front, Mason looked hollow. The sleepless weeks had aged him. His suit no longer held the same arrogance. He didn't look up when she walked in. The judge, a middle-aged woman with silver streaks in her tightly pinned hair, reviewed the files slowly, calm, methodical, but with visible tension in her jaw. Then came the recordings. The room listened in stunned silence as her father's frail voice filled the chamber. His weariness, his confusion, his clarity. The grainy video of Mason shredding documents made two jurors shift in their seats. And when Lena's quiet voicemail played, even the clerk lowered his gaze. A kind of collective reckoning settled over the room like dusk. Mason's lawyer stood after, voice tight, trying to spin things, context, stress, misunderstood intentions. But every word landed with less weight than the last. Then it was Lena's turn. She stepped forward. No notes, no anger, just truth. My father loved both of us, but love isn't blindness. He didn't want a war. He didn't even want court. He wanted to be heard. And when he couldn't speak for himself anymore, Mason made sure his voice disappeared. But my father left a voice, in letters, in videos, in the choices he made before anyone realized how bad things were. And I was there when he was too tired to speak. When he forgot names but never forgot to whisper, "Thank you for staying." She turned toward Mason, her voice unwavering. "You erased me from the paper, but not from his heart. That's why I fought." Then she stepped back, and silence followed. The ruling didn't take long. The court upheld the original will, the one their father had written 2 months before his decline. The property, the vineyard, the financial assets, all split, 50-50. But more than that, the judge made an additional ruling. The forged deed Mason had filed to take full ownership of the vineyard was found to be willfully fraudulent. A criminal investigation would be opened. The moment those words were read, Mason collapsed into the chair beside him, face pale, fingers trembling. He didn't speak. He didn't even look at her. Sandra wasn't in the room. She'd already filed for divorce the week before. Lena didn't celebrate. She didn't need to. She just stood outside the courthouse afterward, sun breaking through the clouds above her, and let the warmth hit her face. It felt like a blessing her father would have sent. Quiet, gentle, unmistakable. People passed by and nodded. A few smiled. One woman touched her arm and whispered, "I followed every word. Thank you for fighting back, for all of us who couldn't." Lena just smiled. "I didn't do it alone." Weeks later, Lena sat on the back porch of the house, her house now. The renovations had begun, fresh paint, new furniture. She even planted lavender by the walkway, just like her father once joked about, but never got around to. In her lap was a photo album. She flipped through pages of old memories, her father holding her as a baby, her high school graduation, him asleep on the couch with a book open on his chest. The man who taught her that silence could be kind, but truth was kinder. Then she turned to the last page. It was blank. She smiled, because the next chapter was hers to write.